What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Joined alongside Tim, live in Green Bay, back to talk some Packers this morning. Some people were going, why are you live at 8:30 in the morning, Clayton? We got tornadoes rolling through down here, so we thought, let's lay out of work and do some podcasting. So if you hear a window break, we'll see you on the other side. You know what I'm saying? So, Tim, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Happy to be here. Glad you decided to jump on this morning. This is great.
Yeah, man, I missed the morning shows. Really looking forward to it. We're going to press into this once we get into November. There'll be a lot more morning shows. So this is my favorite. I don't know about you, man, but when I wake up in the morning, that's the sharpest my mind is all day. From that point, it goes downhill so quick. By the time we do the evening show, I'm over here taking Alpha Brain and trying to stay up. When you get old, man, it happens. But we got Chris in the house. We got Nick McSwain. We got Dane Stromstad. Good to see everybody. Nick McSwain starting us off strong already. We're on the same page, buddy. He says, people are talking like the Minnesota defense changed a lot. I've heard, quote, you never know if someone is blitzing or dropping. Hasn't that always been the case? I completely agree, Nick. Everything that they said going into both matchups against the Packers last year, they're saying again this year. And a lot of people are acting like something's changed. Nothing's really changed. Now, the big thing with Flores is when he got the job, everyone was anticipating them playing more man coverage, and that hasn't been the case. And that's why I kind of pushed back on that narrative when it happened. Because, listen, Belichick liked to run a lot of man coverage, right? Flores ran quite a bit of man coverage in Miami, but a good coach can take – basically what you want to do is press into the personnel that you've got, the people that you've got on the roster. And really, that's what it comes down to, man, is how are you going to utilize the strengths of your roster as opposed to here's what I want to do. I'm stuck in my way. I just want to focus on this. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's what Flores did was he kind of looked at the roster, backed up. And listen, they didn't have, if I remember correctly, Tim, they didn't have a great year last year. So, he kind of getting his feet under him. This year, they're starting off strong. But again, it's early, man. Everybody's kind of getting their footing. And it's early for us, too. Let me go ahead and knock this out real quick. I don't know if all that made sense or not, Tim, but every year teams are trying to, you've seen it with Green Bay. Mm-hmm. Matt LaFleur has done an excellent job working with what he's got. We damn near look like a wishbone offense against the Colts. You're not going to do that with Jordan Love at the helm, right? You got to be able to adjust and put your guys in a position to do what they do well.
Exactly. You can't be stubborn with your approach, right? He adapted. We had Malik come in here, took over when Jay Money went down with the knee. And you've got to adjust your game plan. You've got to adjust, fine tune and fine tailor your scheme around, your quarterback and, his attributes. And I think, Coach LaFleur's done a great job of, calling games that cater to Malik Willis's strengths as a quarterback. And that's why we're 2-0 with him at the helm.
Definitely. We got Cal in the house says the secret this week will be if we can make Darnold move off his spot. To me, this is a game Kenny has to come to play. Pressure up the middle will be the key this weekend. Make him move. Isn't it wild, Cal? The first 3 games of the season, right? We were talking about you got to keep these guys in the pocket. Now, Will Levis was more of you're not as worried about him scrambling, but he does have that ability. It seems like he wants to scramble to throw the ball, and the other 2 quarterbacks we played wanted to scramble to run the ball. So now you're getting into a week where it's, okay, Sam Darnold, not a scrambler. He can move enough to get away from pressure, but he's nothing like the first 3 you face. So you do want to compress the middle of the center of that pocket. Now, here's the other thing. Aaron Jones. We're going to get into that. Hopefully, if we don't get into this morning's show, then tonight we'll get into the tendencies in what direction they're running in and all that type of thing. Are they running outside? Are they running inside? I believe that last game they focused inside. That kind of caters to what we want to do. We want to push the middle of the pocket. And if they are running inside a lot, that will really help blow up that inside run game. Now, Aaron Jones can cut on a dime. We all know that. We're just kind of theoretically speaking here. But, yeah, I think you're spot on there, man, talking about wanting to move him off his spot. That makes all the sense in the world for sure. So
I agree with that. I think it's going to be on Kenny Clark. It's going to be on Devontae Wyatt. It's going to be on TJ Slayton. We need big games out of these guys in that defensive front for sure.
Heck yeah, man. No doubt. Let's see. We got a Vikings fan in the chat here. I gotta admit, man, I do like the profile pic. That's a throwback. That's Randy Moss mooning the Lambeau crowd.
Here's the guy.
Blood Eagle Smeagol says Packers week LFG, man. It's a hell of a rivalry, no doubt about it, buddy. Welcome to the chat. Appreciate you tuning in this morning. We're going to kind of talk about it from a Packers perspective of, all right, what should the game plan be to try to stop Minnesota? I know this, Tim. Last week we did this, and in the comments, once we ended the live stream, a bunch of Titan fans came in and go, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. They're going to boat race them. Well, we had receipts aplenty. Minnesota going to be a much tougher matchup. There's no two ways about it. But, we absolutely nailed the game plan last week, and I've been kind of digging in this morning. We're going to key in on our offensive game plan because Minnesota's got one of the best defenses in the league right now, and I'm going to show you where some of the weak spots may or may not be. We'll talk about tendencies, what formations they like to lean on, what they like to match with personnel, things like that. So it's going to be a good time. But welcome to the chat there, Smeagol. Appreciate you tuning in, buddy. Omer, a morning show. Woohoo! Omer's like, finally, I get one at 3 a.m.
Heard it from a fan right here.
There you go. All right. So first things first, everyone's talking about the Houston-Minnesota game, right? Like, man, they boat raced the Houston Texans. And I started digging in. I watched the tape twice today, the condensed copy, so I could just kind of have it on the background when I was prepping the show, and got a pretty good feel for what happened in that game. I'm going to show you guys the recap real quick. And this is just team statistics here, okay? So the big thing that we talk about is middle eight, turnover differential, and explosives. I did not have time to tally up the explosives, but I guarantee you Minnesota won the explosive battle with this score, right? So they obviously won the explosive battle. Turnover margin, okay, or turnover differential. Minnesota won the turnover differential 2-0. I believe there was maybe a pick thrown. No, yeah, 2 interceptions thrown. Okay, there you go. So Houston turned the ball over twice, and Minnesota didn't turn the ball over at all. Anytime you go into a game or come out of a game with a +2 turnover differential, you've got it's something like an 88% chance of winning that game. It just goes through the roof. So you got to control turnover differential. The Packers are leading the league in turnover differential. So hopefully that trend continues into this game from a Green Bay perspective. If that's the case and you can win that turnover differential, then you're going to get the percentage of the win in your favor. There's no two ways about that. The explosives, you got to be able to control the explosives. Now, that's something that I feel like Green Bay in the first 2 weeks, they were giving up a few explosives, right? Now, last week we really controlled that. And then obviously the middle eight, no one won the middle eight. It was 0-0 in this Houston Texans Minnesota Vikings game, Tim. But I wanted to make a note that at 10:22 left in the third quarter, Minnesota did score a touchdown. So you're talking about, 30 seconds from being in the middle eight. Most of the time I look at that and put a star next to it. That might as well be the middle eight. It's right. The opening drive of the second half. That's the momentum we're talking about. So
absolutely.
So that's those two things. And here's the other one that stood out to me. Look at the penalties, Tim. You lost the turnover differential 2-0, and then you lost the penalty battle. Houston had 11 penalties for 88 yards. All right. Minnesota only had 5 for 30. So you're talking about 58 yards of invisible yardage there just from penalties. You throw all that into a pot, that's how you get the boat race that you get there in Minnesota. And it's worth noting, it was played in Minnesota. This is going to be played in Green Bay. Believe me, that makes all the difference in the world, man.
Yeah, and I think after, last week's game, I think there'll be an emphasis on tightening up and not getting as many penalties as we did. However, there were a few ticky-tack ones that probably could have went either way. I mean, it's not all on the Packers, but I think the big thing to remember is the procedural stuff. Get in your alignment, make sure we've got the right personnel, make sure we're not lined up on the ball, things like that. We can shore those up, but I'm not worried about the holds and that kind of crap. It happens on every play. Sometimes you get caught, sometimes you don't. But I think the Packers definitely need to, make that a point of emphasis, is to tighten up, be professionals out there, do your job, do it right. Don't get caught with your hand in a cookie jar, so to speak.
Right, exactly. Cal asks, has Alexander been following the other team's best, or are they playing it straight? So in week 1, I think it was.
Oh, we remember that.
Yeah, he followed A.J. Brown, and he got absolutely cooked, right? I don't feel like he followed the number 1 receiver in the last 2 games. So, Ja's one that's been very vocal. He wants to follow the one. Maybe he backed off that a little bit. And lo and behold, look what happens to him, Gets the pick 6. He was on that specific play. he was covering DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins, most of the day, was lined up on Eric Stokes. So on that pick 6 play, to answer your question, Cal, it was Jair Alexander covering D-Hop on the right side of the field. And then later on in the game, D-Hop catches a touchdown pass. I was actually there at the game. He catches a touchdown pass on the left sideline against Stokes. Yep. So we know without a shadow of a doubt, Ja didn't follow the number 1 receiver in the game in Tennessee. We know without a shadow of a doubt. Believe me, he followed him in week 1. So hopefully from our stance, and this is what I've always been an advocate for, I don't like the number 1 corner traveling. I think it's stupid. I think you're putting yourself in such a disadvantage because if the offense recognizes that, they can manipulate the hell out of your defense. Yep. It's so easy to do. So
we all remember, I believe that was the last time they came to Lambeau. Ja kind of shut Justin Jefferson down. We remember the hitting the gritty on Justin Jefferson. Right. Fond memories for us Packer fans. But I agree with you, Clayton. I don't know if just sending Ja after JJ all day is going to be the answer. I see Nick McSwain in the chat there. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, Nick McSwain said, "Y'all remember when Ja grittied on Jefferson? And you could tell he was just waiting. He could not do it quick enough."
I just feel like if that's the approach this time, right? Because there was a lot of talk going into that game and a lot of talk about Ja's play, and Ja came out and had a hell of a ball game. Shut down Jefferson. If that's our game plan going into Vikings week this time, I fully expect the Vikings to adjust their offense and work around that and still produce. So we got to do better than just, hey, put Ja on JJ all day,
Yeah, definitely. Cal said that's why I asked. He did a job on JJ before. Yeah, and if you'll remember last year on New Year's Eve, when if I remember correctly, the Vikings beat the Packers early in the season. The Packers beat the Vikings on New Year's Eve. And that game, I specifically remember Corey Ballantyne covering JJ the majority of the night. And he did a really good job. Ended up getting an interception, which was off a tip pass, but he actually played. We were all surprised. We were like, holy cow, man. He played McCarthy, or he played Justin Jefferson pretty good. Now, if you guys remember, the starting quarterback got knocked out of that game too. Sam Darnold and the level that he's playing at this year, way different than the quarterback play when we played them. And their starting quarterback got knocked out there in New Year's Eve. So it's gonna be a good game, man, for sure. I'm excited about it. All right, the other thing I wanted to mention here in the recap is there was no defensive or special teams touchdowns, and the possession. Notice the time of possession. Houston actually won the time of possession at 30-42, and Minnesota had 29-18. So I know many people like to lean on that like it's the most important thing. I have never looked at it that way. It's important, don't get me wrong. If you can control the clock and keep the ball out of the offense's hands, absolutely. You'd rather do that than not. But this is just another example. The most important thing is that turnover differential, no doubt about it. So, and like I said, the middle eight plays a big role too. And typically the score is controlled by those explosives that we always talk about. So there you go. Just want to kind of give a recap because when I seen that score, and I'm going to pop this up on the screen right now. When I seen that score, Tim, I went, holy cow, man, 34-7. My goodness, right?
Yep.
And of course, they beat the Niners. Everybody was acting like they beat the hell out of the Niners, and they really only beat the Niners by 6 points. And the Niners are having a down season. So that win, now that we've seen the Niners struggle, not as concerned about. That Giants win, that's what you should do to the Giants, though, if you're a good football team, 28-6. So currently the line, according to DraftKings Sportsbook, is sitting at the Packers being a 3-point favorite. Now, we always talk about here on this show, the home team typically gets 3 points. That's the way that works, right? So Vegas is seeing this pretty much as a push right now, is if you remove the home field advantage, this is as even as it gets at the moment. I'm excited to see where the money comes in and who it comes in on. It's going to be on CBS. It's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff, which obviously will be 12 noon there at Lambeau. The NFC North division standings right now, as you see right here, Minnesota leads 3-0. They have scored 85 points and only allowed 30. That is a wild statistic there. Detroit is technically in second place at 2-1. They have scored 62 points and allowed 53. And the Green Bay Packers are 2-1. They've scored 75 and allowed 58. Poor Chicago Bears, 1-2. They've scored 53, allowed 57. So you see, if you were to remove, Tim, the the standings at all and how the tiebreaker works out there, it's obvious the two best performing teams so far this year is the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. Again, Minnesota's defense only giving up 30 points. As good as our defense has been, we've given up 28 more points than the Vikings. That's how good the Vikings defense is playing right now. So anything you want to hit there, man, as far as that goes? I mean, you got some of the other statistics, passing yards per game. That rushing yards per game is pretty impressive at 125. 28.3 points per game is what they're averaging, and they're only allowing 10 points per game on average.
That's that concern right there, the rushing yards. And, we still got love for Aaron Jones, but we don't want to see him running all over us on Sunday. And, we know the Packers' track record when it comes to the run defense, right? So this is a game that, we've got to put an emphasis on that. And I just, Aaron Jones lighting us up would just give me nightmares for years to come. So I think we've got to make it a point of emphasis. I think we need to trust our secondary. I feel good, especially with guys like McKinney and Bullard back there. I feel good about our defense in the pass game, even with the weapons that they have. My concern is Aaron Jones in that run scheme that Minnesota's been using effectively, as well as Aaron Jones, swing passes, check downs, that kind of stuff out of the backfield. We've got to account for that stuff. We've seen it plenty of times, the Packers hold the line and the play continues, it's extended, and all of a sudden something that looks like it's blown up turns into 20 yards up the field. So we've got to account for 33 out there, I think, on Sunday for sure. And as far as the spread goes, hopefully this guy doesn't show up. I mean, if this guy shows up, I don't know about that 3-point favorite.
I wonder who's working the game. Any idea? That's really the only. It's funny. It used to be like Ed Hoggulese, and it wasn't like a bad thing. It was like the official I knew, and there was a couple of different officials throughout my lifetime watching football. He's the new one. It's like, all right, what game is he calling this week? Right?
Yep. Yeah. If we see this guy, we're definitely calling this guy.
Telling you, it's uncanny, dude. It is uncanny how much they look alike. Omer said, how to stop their pressure and how much we can apply is key. The run games will also be key who wins the ground game. Our run D was sensational last week, but they give up too many explosives in 2024. That's it, man. And with Aaron Jones, again, the only weakness I really see with him, having played here is go after that football, man. Yeah. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to punch and tackle like Wood used to do, right? Nick McSwain said he thinks Love figured out the Vikings last year. When people talk about the blitz-heavy scheme, Nick, I get excited because there's so many opportunities to hit explosives with a blitz-heavy team. You just got to have a quarterback who could recognize it. And we seen it last year. Him changing the play at the line, hitting Tay Wicks down the seam. I remember that play like it was yesterday. It was New Year's Eve. They called a cover 2 invert. And most quarterbacks would struggle reading that. Jordan read it, sent Jaden Reed on a skinny post. There's no way that invert 2 on the right was going to get to his spot and cover the seam. First of all, it's a cover 2. The seam is wide open. That's how you attack it. That's the base. And then you got the 2 bunkers and the hole shots on the sideline. Yep. And the fact that he recognized that invert 2 and told, I think it was the 3, I'm pretty sure it was a 1x3 set. He told the 3 to hit a skinny. Man, it was game over. And that little fadeaway shot, knew the pressure was coming, dropped it right in the bucket. So pressure doesn't bother me. But I watched Aaron Rodgers play his whole career, and he cut pressure up, man. What he struggled with was the 2-man underlooks where you had, 7 in coverage and every, 2 safeties over the top preventing the shot play and guys playing man under. That's where Aaron really struggled. So, there you go. So let's see what else we got here. Let's look at the stats just real quick and kind of get an idea of how well Sam Darnold's playing. So obviously so far he is 53 of 78 for 657 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He has a passer rating of 117.3, completion percentage of 67.9%. Let me put that in perspective for you. Aaron Rodgers has a career completion percentage of about 65%. So that's what I always base everything off of. It's like, okay, one of the more accurate quarterbacks in history there, right?
65%.
65%. That's what damn, I didn't even catch it, Tim. Thank you, sir. So there is that. Now let's look at the running game. Aaron Jones leading the way, 228 yards on 42 attempts, 5.4 yards per carry. All right, so he's just lighting it up. Ty Chandler, too, 25 carries, 112 yards. That offensive line's blocking for these running backs, Tim. There's no two ways about that, man. Rushing yards over expected per carry. Aaron Jones is at a plus 1.2. Wild statistic.
Here's the guy.
Receiving leaders, of course, Justin Jefferson. He's been targeted 21 times. He's got 14 receptions for 273 yards and 3 touchdowns. Catch percentage is at 66.7%. Even higher than that, though, is their second leading receiver at Jalen Naylor. He's got 9 targets with 7 catches for 106 yards, 3 touchdowns for him already. That's wild. And his catch percentage is 77.8%. Oh, by the way, the old Aaron Jones is back in the passing game. 85.7% catch percentage for him. So seems like he got whatever problems he had last year catching the football buttoned up. There's no doubt about that. So as far as the defense, and again, we're just kind of combing through real quick, their sack leaders. You got Jonathan Grenard with 4 sacks. You've got Patrick Jones, another linebacker, with 4 sacks. You got Andrew Van Ginkel with 3 sacks. Harrison Phillips has got a sack. Blake Cashman has got a sack. So keep in mind, I'm pretty sure they run a 34 front. So their linebackers are obviously edge defenders. There's some linebackers in there. Now, Van Ginkel, I'm pretty sure, is a stack backer. He plays inside backer. So that shows you when they're bringing those zero blitzes, he's hitting home. There's no doubt about it with 3 sacks at the inside linebacker position. So that's how that shakes out there. We could go insights real quick, I guess, if you want to, Tim, since we got the site pulled up. I think these are really cool. Let's start with this one here, Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson has scored a touchdown in all 3 games this season. The Packers have allowed 5 passing touchdowns. That's tied for 5th most in the league, which includes 3 to receivers, a line wide, tied for 4th most, okay? Sam Darnold has thrown at least 2 touchdowns in all 3 games this season, includes 4 touchdowns in the Vikings Week 3 win over the Texans. Keep in mind, they basically had 2 extra possessions with the turnover, so that's obviously going to help in that regard. Sam Darnold has averaged 12.8 yards per attempt when using play action this season, the most among qualified quarterbacks this season. So they love to hit those explosives through the play action game. Justin Jefferson has totaled the 2nd most receiving yards at 159 and tied for the most touchdowns, 3 against man coverage this season. So that kind of plays in our favor. We're playing way more zone than we are man, which is a good thing. We're playing a lot of cover 3. So Justin Jefferson is cutting man coverage apart this year. That's a positive in my view. All right, the Packers play a little more zone. We probably want to press into zone there with JJ on the field for sure. So that's just a couple of things I wanted to hit on. There's some defensive insights here too. Tim, I see you got something. Let's pop your screen up real quick. What you got for me, man?
We got a comment here. I think I started, if you want to pull it up on the screen. So we've got the Matthew Johnson hit us up. Bill Vinovich is the referee for the Packer game. And
tell me about
here's the guy.
Here's the guy that is probably worse than Ron Tolbert. I think him and Ron Tolbert are probably fighting for the worst officiating crews.
They're leading the power rankings.
Yeah, they're leading the power rankings in dumpster fire officiating in the NFL. Packer fans should be no stranger to Bill Vinovich at all. And this makes me just a tad nervous for Sunday's game. I'll tell you, Clayton, I watch these games and you see crews that throw a flag and you see them huddle up. It's communicated immediately and we've got a call. You see guys like Vinovich, you see guys like Ron Tolbert, there's flags all over the field, and it takes 10 minutes for them to tell us what the hell they're calling because they're literally making it up on the fly. So we got to play our game. I mean, officiating works both ways, right? This could affect Minnesota too. It could affect us. We just got to really focus and play our game here. But this is definitely not one of my favorite officials here. This guy is notoriously bad. Some of these refs, man, they just love that TV time. They love walking out into the field, turning the mic on. Cameras are on them. That's definitely one of them here, Mr. Vinovich. So fingers crossed for Sunday, guys.
Yeah, I'm telling you this, man. We've been penalized a lot the first 3 games. And I know that LaFleur and that staff are sending them videos of calls they missed, calls they've called on us that were wrong. And now you're playing at Lambeau. Don't be surprised if they get flag happy if the Vikings end up getting penalized more than the Packers. Now, listen, if you commit a penalty, the flag should be thrown, period, case closed, right? I'm not saying that the officials are going to lean in Green Bay's favor. I'm simply saying that's how that game is played. Typically, when you get a whole lot of penalties coming in early, it kind of gets adjusted as you go through the season because the coaching staff is all over with those officials sending in that tape going, hey, look, well, you called this on us, but you didn't call it on them. I'm telling you, they get a game plan every week too, these officials do. They're graded every week. They're getting a report going, okay, Green Bay complained about this, and this. Minnesota, we only got a couple complaints, but, man, they haven't been penalized at all. Maybe we're missing something there. Those things really happen. Those conversations happen. So don't be surprised. They do get flag happy if it doesn't go in the Packers' favor. Rasheed Walker got to straighten up.
Yeah.
One of the best pass blockers in the game. But, man, that dude is getting grabby. There's no two ways about that. So, Jerry Weiskorbley in the house. Good to see you, ma'am. She says, I still feel an Aaron Jones fumble coming. I agree. We seen it. You know, that's one of the things he runs. He's a very explosive, very exciting runner. But, obviously, you got guys punching at that ball. He's going to fumble quite a bit. And it seemed like it happens in the big games. And I'm not trying to – I guess I am trying to wish this on Aaron Jones now that he's wearing purple. But if you guys remember, he had a lot of fumbles in the playoffs. You know, they're against the Niners. I think both Niner playoff games he fumbled in those games, if I remember correctly. So that's something that came, you know, why do I mention that? Those are the biggest games of the season.
Yeah.
I think this game ain't going to be big to him.
This is a huge game for multiple reasons, especially, you know, depending on what side you look at it. I think with Jonesy, his fumble issues are always at the end of a run, usually, or it's him doing what he does best, which is finding seams and getting into space, right? And usually it's him running down the field and someone comes up behind and punches that ball out.
Yep.
And that's where his ball security issues are. Him hitting and bracing for contact has never been a problem. It's usually when he's in space or he's doing a juke move, somebody gets in there behind and knocks that ball out. So, you know, Jeff Hafley's got this defense of ours playing like this already. Through 3 games, this is what we do. I've talked about this multiple times during Chalk Talk is on any given play, you see guys are constantly punching at that football and ripping at that football. Sometimes after the whistle, they're still trying to wrestle that ball out. So that's a point of emphasis in this Hafley scheme. And I think it's going to favor us, you know, when we try and take on Aaron Jones here. So I could see that. I think Jerry's correct here. I could see at least one getting coughed up on Sunday. And hopefully the fat guys fall on it and the skinny guys pick it up, right? Let's get a fumble recovery.
Exactly. And again, we were kind of combing through some of the insights here from last week as well, just kind of getting an idea of what's going on there as far as that goes. Now, I think the biggest thing that I'm taking away from these 4 points that we've already hit on for the Packers Vikings preview on insights on Next Gen Stats and NFL Pro is that Justin Jefferson one. I mean, like I said, he is cutting up man coverage.
Here's the guy.
If we lean on zone, I'm telling you, that's going to give you the best shot. And you guys know, everybody's going to surprise. Clayton wants more zone coverage. Yes, I do. Now, here's the thing. You can be more aggressive with your blitzing because you don't have to worry about Darnold scrambling out of the pocket, right? The problem is he's going to be a lot better than Will Levis at finding the answer to the equation. But I got to be real with you guys, too. I went back and watched that Tennessee tape multiple times. Will Levis didn't have a chance. There was no one open, and he was getting smacked in the mouth.
Even when we were in single high looks, he still had nowhere to go with it. I would anticipate we see a lot less of that on Sunday against the Vikings, right? I would anticipate to see 2 on the shelf most of the afternoon.
Yeah, I agree. So there that is. Now let's do this real quick, Tim. I want to change gears and let's talk about what the game plan may look like for this game against Minnesota. And what I mean by that is it all starts with personnel, okay? Here is what the numbers are showing. I say numbers, the analytics, the scouting, if you will. This is what Minnesota likes to do, okay? They play, you know, they're a blitz-heavy team. We've heard everyone talk about it. They play cover 0 10% of the time on defense. That is tied for first in the league. What zero blitz means or zero coverage means is there are no safeties up top. You're in man coverage across the board, and anyone who doesn't have a man coverage assignment, they're blitzing. So essentially they're saying, I dare you to throw the football. That's what they're saying, right?
which means as a quarterback, throw that damn ball immediately.
Exactly. And people go, well, that's easier said than done. If they're playing press, you can't get off the line. What are we notorious for with Matt LaFleur's offense? Motion. What does sheet motion do? It prevents you from getting that press. Now, you go back to last year. Why did we have success? Probably has something to do with it.
It's also a good way to identify that coverage, right? You set a guy in motion, you see somebody running across with him, you already know what time it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So keep that in mind. Now, that's not the coverage they run the most. Obviously, they only run it 10% of the time. So what coverage are they in the most? They run cover 2 zone 26% of the time. That's second most in the league. Remember the Tay Wicks touchdown we just talked about. That was invert 2. That's technically cover 2 zone. All right. Yeah. So keep that in mind. They're continuing.
Be a huge game for Tay Wicks, right? Tay Wicks is definitely knows how to find those soft spots and sit down. You talk about, taking the occasional shot play here or, borderline explosive, right? Mm-hmm. I'm looking at Dontavian Wicks. Put a star next to his name for Sunday. He could be an X factor for sure.
Definitely. So the next coverage that they run the most is cover 4 zone. Okay, so they play a lot of shell, a lot of cover 4. Now, they disguise a lot. They run it 25% of the time. That's 6th most in the league. So here's what I want you to understand. If you're not showing blitz, cover 2 and cover 4 look exactly the same pre-snap. And you've got to decipher it post-snap, right? You notice how everything that we're talking about, if you were to say Malik Willis or Jordan Love, who gives you the better shot? Even if Jordan Love isn't 100% healthy, it's Jordan Love. Jordan Love can read the defense better than Malik Willis. Jordan Love has a stronger arm than Malik Willis. I don't know if I don't feel comfortable saying he's more accurate, but his understanding of the playbook and being able to check in and out of plays is definitely more expansive than Malik Willis.
More experience.
Everything's pushing towards Jordan Love. I mean, it goes without saying. Jordan Love is a better quarterback than Malik Willis. We would all agree. The issue is sometimes you look at a game plan and go, maybe Willis's, skill set is more favorable in this situation, and you're going to be put in that specific situation more often. This game here, it screams Jordan Love all day long.
Yep. And also be prepared for, the Vikings to maybe knowing all of this like we do. Maybe they come out with a different game plan. Maybe we see them sitting back in coverage and they're not sending the dogs and they're daring us to try and pick them apart, which would obviously favor Jordan Love instead of Malik Willis. I agree with that statement. I think if Malik's back there and they want to rush 6 or 7, I think Malik's going to know what to do, which is get rid of it quick or tuck it and run and get out of there,
Definitely. And now that we've established, okay, here are the defenses they run the most. Outside of zero man, they don't play a whole lot of man coverage. It's either 0-man blitz or it's playing zone coverage. I think it was something like, 8% of the time. I've actually got it here. If I can pull it up real quick. Let's go formation tendency. No, personnel tendency. Actually, it's on another screen. Hold on a second. There we go. Coverage rates. So with Minnesota, they're in cover 1 man 8% of the time, and they're in cover 2 man only 1% of the time. So, I mean, that goes to show you that's basically the 3-man coverages you can run. You can run 0, you can run cover 1, or you can run cover 2. It's literally it's either cover 0 or hardly anything at all other than zone. So that's what that shakes out to be. Their EPA per drop back is really good, but I'm going to explain to you the weak spots real quick, okay? Here are the weak spots of the Vikings defense, and there's not a whole lot, but check this out. 2x2 sets. What we mean by 2x2 sets. 2 targets on the left, 2 targets on the right. You can go, like, for instance, the Packers like to run a lot of 11 personnel. They may go 11 gun strong right. That means receiver on the left, tight end receiver on the right. That's still considered a 2x2 set, okay? Against 2x2 sets, the Vikings have an EPA allowed of positive 0.02. That's 16th best in the league. So there you're seeing middle of the pack when they're having to face 2x2 sets. Keep that in mind. 1x3 sets, okay? 1x3 meaning 1 wide receiver on the left, 3 targets on the right. Now, that could be Trey right. That could be Trips right. Trey right meaning a tight end is one of those 3 targets. Trips meaning that's 3 wide receivers. Nonetheless, 1x3 sets, they're 14th in EPA allowed at negative 0.11. All right. So, again, middle of the pack, right? They're nothing great there. 12 personnel, they're 19th in EPA allowed at negative 0.02 with 12 personnel. So when you look at those statistics or those analytics there, Tim, here's what you come away with. You want a lot of 2x2 sets and you want 12 personnel. The Packers ran more 12 personnel than anyone else in the NFL last season. So you're seeing how the Packers probably won that New Year's Eve game. It kind of played out in that direction. Now, what you want to avoid are 3x1 sets, okay? 3x1 sets meaning 3 targets on the left, 1 on the right, because you always work from left to right. You want to avoid that. Their EPA allowed is 6th best in the league at minus 0.27, okay? So what you want to focus on is 2x2 sets and 1x3, Trey and Trips right. That should be what you lean into. Here's the beautiful thing. When they go zero coverage, we just talked about you need cheat motion. You can get in and out of those plays at any point by using that cheat motion. Let me explain to you what I mean. If you want to lean on 2x2 sets, right? You want to go 2x2, 12 personnel, and you want to try to get the run game going. And you want to play action off of it as well. What you want to do is you want to come out and show strong right? Strong right ace or strong right pistol, meaning out of 12 personnel, meaning you're going to have 2 tight ends on one side of the field along with the receiver. That's still a 3x set. So if you start with that 3x set, what I would like to see them do, Tim, is come out with a Trey left look out of 12 personnel, meaning 2 tight ends, 1 receiver on the left, and then motion that tight end to the 2x2 set. And that's going to allow Jordan Love or Malik Willis to recognize is it zone or man coverage and also get you in that favorable 2x2 set. So I think you're going to see a lot of trips, a lot of bunch, a lot of Trey looks pre-snap, motioning to 2x2 sets. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It does. And we can't get caught being complacent, right? And we've got to be willing to, regardless of who our QB is, we've got to be willing to adjust and, check in and check out of certain things. You're right. Cheat motion is gonna help us in this ball game. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah. And the reason that we mention that, guys, is because when you look at the 3x1 sets and you want to avoid that when it's 3x1 to the left, if you start in that and then motion to your 2x2 set to the right, you're out of that 3x1. You're avoiding what they're doing really, really well and stopping that 3x1 set. And then also, when you do go trips or Trey, you want to go 1x3, which is trips and Trey right. Guess what you do? You start off with a 2x2 set and motion them to the right. And you get that cheat motion, that release. You can motion that into bunch nasty. There's a lot of things you can do a semi-stack look if you want with the cheat motion. That's really, really battles press, man. So I feel like that's what you need to focus on from an offensive standpoint. 12 balance, 1x3, trips right, Trey right is what you really need to lean in on there. Anything else you want to add to that, Tim?
No, I think that was great. I mean, really giving us an insight going into this game. I'm sure, we're at, what's today, Thursday? So I'm sure Tupac LaFleur is definitely diving into the film at this point and putting together a game plan. I'm sure this is going to be a point of emphasis because, Minnesota's defense is stout and we've got to find creative ways to get the ball to our playmakers. And we can't get caught, playing into their hands. Like you said, we have to avoid these sets that cater to their defense. And there's one thing I know about good old Matt LaFleur is he's going to call himself a hell of a game here. And I'm ready for it. I still think it's going to be a close one. This is going to be a heavyweight slugfest down to the final bell. I think this game's going to be decided by 10 points or less, which means everything comes at a premium and you cannot get caught cheating or slipping or anything in this game. You've got to have the right plan, the right approach, and also be willing to adapt in case they mix it up.
Yeah, definitely, man. I was just combing through the chat here, see if we missed anything. Obviously, we got the ref talk, so we're good there. We're tracking really, really well. So we showed you the coverage rates and everything. Turnover differential per game. Let's hit that real quick, and then we'll get into the defensive side of the ball, maybe even a little PFF preview here. So this is what I meant by turnover margin per game, or what I refer to as turnover differential. This is the differential in which you take the ball away and your offense gives the ball to the other team, right? Packers lead the NFL at plus 2.3. You can look at that two ways, Tim. You could say, hey, that's great, that's in our favor, but you can also look at it like, that is really high. Are we going to come back down to earth a touch, right? Minnesota is 6th in the league at plus 0.7. So they're really good at it as well. They're a top 10 team in turnover differential as well. That's a huge, huge statistic there, in my opinion. And you see kind of where Minnesota was before the last game. If you look there, the last game alone, they were plus 2. Before that, what were they at? Their last 3, they're only a plus, obviously the first 3 games of the season, they're a plus 0.7. So that last game really helped them. It really did. And it was uncharacteristic of CJ Stroud to turn the ball over, no doubt. So just something to kind of keep an eye on there. Again, in my opinion, the most important things, middle 8, turnover differential, and explosive plays, not in that order. They're all 3 kind of balanced for me. Turnover differential probably hands down the most important, but those other 2 are really important to controlling the momentum of the game and controlling, obviously, the scoreboard. So there you go with that. With that being said, that's the end of hour 1. For those of you on the pod, we'll see you on the other side for hour 2. Appreciate y'all.